was an old boss of mine, and he was like, we don't sell food, we don't sell drinks. What we actually sell is a good time. So, and it's our job to facilitate that good time. Make sure absolutely everybody's having a good time. So, and that comes down to all these tiny little details to make sure that when everybody's left the building, they've gone, I've had a really fucking good time in there. I'm going to go back.
Hello and welcome to Party of Six, an industry panel of, well, we don't like to call ourselves experts, but people that really have been in this industry and understand it. Joining us today is Dave Nitzel of Dave and Dave Consulting, Aoife Halliday of the Ruckus Group, Meenakshi Singh of, remind me, Meenakshi, because mine went blank.
Sidecar, speakeasy, brook. You could just say Thirsty Through Hospitality, also bar owner.
And we got Cliff Kreider of Truck and Tap. I'm Chris Schneider. I normally host the Bar Business Podcast, but today we're bringing this panel together to have a great conversation all about ambiance in the bar industry and what we can do as people in the industry and bar owners to make our experience better through our guests through ambiance. So there's a lot of stuff here, guys, that we could get into. And I know that we're probably going to get everything from lighting to sound to uniforms to how things look, how build outs work. But I think maybe we should start from the kind of base level, because ambiance, when you're building out a bar, when you're starting off, is kind of what you're thinking about. So let's work from building out through, the guest experience. So who wants to start? What are some of your pet peeves when it comes to kind of bar design that people get wrong in that build out process?
My pet peeve is the height of the bar for sure, but lighting has to be everybody's top pick.
I just got
Yeah.
back, Cliff, because I remember you talking about this at one point. I just did a quick trip. I was in I just happened to be in Gdansk in Poland, and we went into it. And there's cocktail bars. There's more cocktail bars per capita, I think, there than anywhere in the world. It's amazing. Huge recommendation. And we sat down at this really cool cocktail bar, and I mean, I was somewhere like down here on the bar, and I was like, this is horrible. And I asked the bartender, I was like, hey man, like drinks are great, you guys are great, everything's great, but I've got to go because I feel like a child here. And he said, yeah, what we did was we just put in a new bar. We redid the bar top and it raised the bar like 6 inches. So now when you sit at the bar,
Sure.
literally your elbows were here. And I was like, hey man, like, let's go ahead and spend the extra $200. I don't care what kind of bar stools they are. Like I just need them to be, I can't feel like I'm in grade school. So I know that's also a pet peeve of yours. I was almost like, hey man, do I need to donate to the bar chair cause? I know that. How do you think about that?
I thought maybe you weren't the average height for Poland.
No, not at all. Definitely not. No, I'm not special.
Yeah. For me, absolutely. Height is bar height, Cliff, Dave. Like, absolutely. I feel like it starts from there. You enter and you see something is wrong. Why are these gigantic people standing in the bar? And suddenly you feel lower, and you also feel midgety. You somehow cannot, you don't feel like you can connect to the bartenders. You don't have eye to eye contact. I feel this is really basic body language. Conversations that we have all the time about how do you make people feel comfortable. Eye contact, physical distance. All of that you bring to the bar with your connection is kind of missing the minute it's at somewhere mismatched height. And I think I've seen that a lot here as well in India, in Asia. A lot of bars make that massive mistake of bringing the bar height really high up. Usually it's because of plumbing reasons and something else architecturally. Of course, the person who's involved in the designing is never the bartender and never somebody who has ever worked in a bar. So they will always think about the most fanciest of lights and the most fanciest, whatever, most expensive leather couch, but they'll never think about why the height is wrong and why my bar is not working. So I definitely think that is, 100% one of the first things that we all, I feel, notice when we enter the bar. I mean, collectively, if I can say so.
They never
I
think
agree.
about how to clean it as well.
Oh, yeah. And the other thing I would think that other than the bar height, what is bar height? And of course, then there's bar stool. And then the comfort of the bar stool is the number two thing that you had never thought about your own guest, about how they're going to be sitting. Sometimes you're hanging with your feet hanging, You're like sitting with your feet hanging. And, after 10, 20 minutes, you're like literally your feet are finding something to hang on to. But, there's just one measly railing given. So it's literally like, what am I supposed to do with my feet? Somehow, of course, that part, which is usually pre-ordered furniture, or somebody who's not experienced would give you furniture like that. So I think as somebody who's planning to design a bar, think about your guests' comfort foremost, and of course your bartender's comfort.
I think
So
it's
comfort would be my number one go-to.
I think it's interesting how sensitive it is too, Meenakshi. Like I just wrote down sound, sight, smell, touch, taste. And when we wrote the second book, I think it was Michael Tipp said, it's the five senses that create a sixth, which is experience. And something just as delicate as the bar height being a little off made me want to leave a bar that I was otherwise enjoying. If the bar is sticky, which is gross, you're going to leave even if everything else is great. If the sound is off, to Cliff's point, like it's way more sensitive, I think, than perhaps what we realize. And I don't know, I'm the only one here who's never been cool enough to own a bar. So, but I am a master guest. Like I go to bars all the time and I love going. So so what I'm saying is, look, I'm sensitive to these things. And I think the guests might notice them when we otherwise have forgotten about them. It becomes a bit of an afterthought. We get really used to seeing things. Or when's the last time that you checked how sticky your bar was and that sort of thing?
Something that comes into mind, though, we were talking a lot about you need a bar that's the right height, you need a chair that's the right height. What do we mean? What is the right height? Cliff,
Yeah,
do you have one?
I'll just pitch in real quick. I mean, no, I'm no bar architect by any means, but so you do have bar height, you have counter height, and you have table height, and so you do have the same chairs that are representative of those heights. And I think for me, a good restaurant is one that has everything. So if you've got the bar height, maybe it's 44 inches, you have the right kind of stool. The overhang, the bar overhang is really important because you want to like cozy up into the bar. You don't want your legs like spread eagle like this up against the bar because the bar overhang is only 6 inches. So you need a good bar overhang. You need the right bar stool. But I think when you look at the overall, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's a bar, you want to have some bar height tables, kind of cushioning that area around the bar, and then you want to even have some counter height. I love a restaurant that has counter height or table that are lifted. So you actually have to step up into a booth and you're a little higher than somebody that's walking by you. So I kind of feel like sometimes sitting on the floor is just, I'd rather sit a little higher. That's just personally. But if you can offer different table heights and different little places inside the restaurant or the bar, then it becomes kind of cozy. You can get away or you can be seen. You can be high, you can be low. So just I think the variety is really important. But if you nail that variety, bam, you got a cool place.
I think that depends. So we call them high tops. Is that what you call them,
Yep.
Cliff? Yeah. So
Yep. Or bar height, yeah.
yeah, bar height. So we call them high tops. I always like my general rule is if you've got high tops should be in the same room as the actual bar. So if you've got different areas, then you lower the heights depending on the ceilings and and all the rest. And if you have your high tops in the actual bar area, because otherwise it feels like you're sitting on the floor. You've got the lower tables next to the bar top. It's like it doesn't feel right, and it feels like everybody's above you and looking down.
Or you get butts and faces. Like we
And you
were
get butts
coaching
and
a group
faces.
and
Exactly.
we would get 2 or 3 deep and then it was just bar tables at standard height and the bar was this is a magnificent place, by the way. And I said, hey guys, like I don't know if you've had the sit at the table experience while the bar is banging, but it's nothing but crotch and butt in your face the whole time. And guess what? Like that might be really awesome and it might not. Like I'm opting out of the butt and crotch and face scenario for dinner. So what I encourage them to do is to put the high tops and then go to the elevated booths, but they didn't. And one thing about they're so damn good, people just sort of suffer the circumstance. But I think that's a really good point, Cliff. Like you can elevate the booths as well, so you don't. Again, no one wants to feel like they're in grade school when they're at the bar, right? There's a little bit of vibe in the bar where you don't want to be, for some reason, physically the lowest in the room, I suppose.
Right. Well, Dave, if you open up your bar, you can call it Button Crotch.
That's a
Button
great name.
Crotch
Yeah,
Pub.
the Button Crotch Bar. I like that.
Nice
That's an original.
pub sound.
Hang on. Got it.
We call the pen.
I guess before we get too off track,
Yeah, get control of
let's
this,
stay back
Chris.
towards lighting. Let's talk about
Yeah.
what are your guys' thoughts on lights? Because I know when it comes to lighting, there are some folks that really like really low lighting. There are some folks that say, "Hey, I'm not a huge fan of low lighting," and it's kind of all over the map. I know personally, I want it low enough that people are comfortable, but bright enough that because I was in the kind of shady neighborhood bar side of bars, not a bad way. Nice people came to my bar still, but there were shady people that would come in. And so I needed it light enough that you weren't going to do a drug deal in the corner. So that was kind of my balance. I want it dark enough that you can have a good time and have an intimate conversation, but bright enough that you don't want to deal drugs. But I'm sure you guys probably are not in that situation. So what are your thoughts on lights?
I guess it starts from concept mostly, Chris. Definitely there's an ideal lighting for an evening out. We are here not talking about restaurants, we're talking about bars. Bars are the low lighting helps you be yourself. That's actually psychologically how this whole thing works, that it actually allows you to be yourself, to maybe have the little bit of the clandestine, situation which happens in the bar, and which is great and it's welcome actually. We're not talking about drug dealing here. Just letting you know, we're talking about all the good stuff, board stuff that you want to do. There's always an ideal lighting, and you have to also work out on the lighting of the natural light that is also coming in from outside. You keep that in mind. If you're operating in the day, you want to have obviously an adjustable, of course, always have dimmers, always have a plan. When a night is going to be like on a Friday and a Saturday after 10:30, you want to dim it further and make it even more, a little more, let's say, night out friendly. That's the way we go. So we actually adjust our lighting as per the mood of the bar as well. Starting from, it's not to say that this is the ideal lumen that you need to maintain, but I would always say it's always, at least ideal, it's said to be 20 to 21 lumens. That's the figure that I've always heard from people, that it's ideal that you need to maintain when you're
I have the rule that the lights go down as the light outside goes down. So you should be constantly adjusting it. So the whole way through the day, so that you are on level with outside. Because if the outside's bright and it's too dark inside, you feel uncomfortable. And vice versa. If it's really bright inside and it's too dark outside, you feel uncomfortable walking in. And then, you know, you don't lose your inhibitions as easily to go and order your first tequila or your whatever. So you have to keep it so that it's so comfortable. And it's a really hard thing to train. It's a really hard thing to train managers to teach them how to adjust the lights, because you can't give them a certain time. It's like, yeah, do it at 6 o'clock, do it at, because obviously we have daylight saving here as well too. So it changes what time it's going to get dark and what time it's going to get light. So yeah, it's a really hard thing to train staff to do correctly. And the same with music, with the chatter, so the level of the music going up with the chatter, rather than the just lots of chatter and really like bassy music like it back. It has to go up with the chatter and down with the chatter. So it's not just music, it's noise. It's the whole ambience of the noise, your soundscape.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The other thing that really
definitely.
helps, and sorry, just lighting, just to add to that, helps is that if you have multiple sources of lighting, sometimes you have, like we have lampshades, we also have hanging lights, we also have spotlights. So there are at least three different sources. And what you're doing is you're constantly adjusting and playing with them. And you see in the first month of your opening or pre-opening also, when you're just about doing trials, and in the evenings when people are there, you kind of see, okay, this hanging light is working for me, maybe you need to shut this one completely off. Maybe you're to, if you have artwork on your walls, they don't need to be lit up. And you're not an art gallery, so you don't want to you don't really need to have that in complete focus. Maybe the focus just has to be at the bar itself. Let people, and in today's time when you need a little bit of that photography, you need people to post on Instagram, TikTok, all of that as well. So you need to have some sort of a table lighting or lighting source near the drink that you're serving. It always adds to, a lot of people will post if the drink is looking good. Mostly, you can see suddenly the jump in that, if you provide people with, you just table lamps that are just like, the ones which you can just tap on and off.
Yeah, I think you're right, multiple sources, and also just really get down into the grittiness of what light bulb you're choosing. There's soft, there's cool, there's hot, warm. I think you've gotta be detail oriented. You just can't have someone say, "Give me a light bulb," and all of a sudden you look up there and there's like three different light bulbs, and there's a blue light over here, a white light over here. You got to nail your light bulbs down. And for whatever concepts you have, it kind of relate. Like I like a lot of amber light, which used to be when we opened this up 10 years ago, I could just go find, normal light bulbs that had this kind of amber tint. And then it becomes, nowadays, it's almost like too many choices. But anyway, just you got to nail your light bulb color down. I'm not smart enough to know exactly which bulb that is, but
The darker it is, the more ambience that you have, the darker it is. People will actually drink it, eat more.
yeah,
Your customers will drink and eat more. And if you have everything down at a nice low level and the bar slightly lighter, then people will know then to go back for another drink because they can see the beacon in the corner. So, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we use a lot of these LED lights that are the old Edison, but we don't have the Edison bulbs like in your face. They're usually behind a diffuser or a glass. And so it kind of diffuses the light. So if you look at our bar from the street and you look inside, it almost looks like a glass of beer. It's sort of a tinge of yellow or amber, really. And so I
Yeah.
kind of I like that lighting. It's more comfortable, and I don't know the science behind it, but for sure if you nail the music and you nail the lighting, people are going to be comfortable. They're just going to be at your bar longer. It's like wearing a nice, comfortable pair of jeans. You just keep
Yeah.
coming back.
And one of the things with lighting that I think people sometimes don't, it's Cliff, to your point, it's the color, right? Historically, my family is all like Scandinavian and Irish and German. So if I don't go out in the sun, I'm about as white as a sheet of paper. And if you put me in blue light, I just look like a ghost. And if you put me in amber light, it gives me a little bit of pink to my skin and I look a little bit healthier,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Even if you pick the wrong light, if you have a lot of pale white people, you can end up in a situation where you make all your patrons look sick rather than they make them look healthy and vibrant.
It's
Yeah.
fine for Halloween.
Yeah, for Halloween, it's great.
So naturally, warm light makes you look better any which ways. It adds a little color to your skin. That is a natural. If you keep it white, bright white light, you can see all the pores and all the everything which you can see, and a lot of people don't. I mean, this is not something that you want to be seeing directly. So it's quite okay to keep it nice and warm lighting, amber lighting, whatever we're calling it, works actually in the bar. I think in terms of the tonality, I would say.
So what we're basically saying is, Cliff, you invented uh, Instagram filters way before Instagram was a thing.
I think I just was really into making sure all the light bulbs were the same. And I couldn't stand it when the manager would just buy a light bulb. And it's like, no, that's it's kind of like blue up there, and that one's yellow. Let's get them all the same. So there are times when if there's a couple of bulbs that need replacing, I'll just take them all out and make sure I got all the same ones. So yeah, we're filtering our bar, old
Yeah.
school analog. Yeah.
Pet peeve in lighting has to be the neon lights, like, the places that you go with this running blues and the running reds. That's like that's a pet peeve. I think we have to have a pet peeve in every aspect that we speak about.
So we got a neon for behind our bar. The bar was called the Ostrich. So we got this big neon made, and it had an ostrich with its head in a pint. So and we got it in yellow, like yellow amber light. But when it came from the neon shop, we did the stupidest thing, and we forgot to put a dimmer on it. So it went up, and it was up for one night, and it had to come straight back down and go back to the shop to get a dimmer on it because it was when when it was up full. It was just bright yellow. It was like the sun. So when you put the dimmer on it, it did that gorgeous thing that Cliff's talking about, which is,
Yeah.
it dimmed it right down to that nice glowy yellow amber light. It was amazing.
Dave, what are your thoughts on
Right.
light?
I was trying to get in. I recently was in New Orleans with a group, and we went out to dinner, and we went out to a place that had an award-winning chef, and this was a pretty was supposed to well, it was a good place, except when you walked in, it had white walls with the bright white light turned up, and it was after hours. So I think to Aoife's point, when you walked in, it was like stark, right? Which sort of takes you back a little. And then the second thing was there was no music playing. And that might be by design, and I might not be cool enough to pick up on that vibe, but the vibe was you walk in, yow, right? The light was bright. And then what you heard was a lot of kitchen noise, which that can be cool, but what's not cool is when I can hear the conversations of all the tables around me. And like for me, I'm a bit of an introvert in those. It takes me a while to sort of catch up to the party. So I
Believe
sort
it or
of
not.
Yeah.
I pull back in that scenario. Like I don't want people to hear what I'm saying to my friends, and I know I can hear their stuff, and I think it's weird. So when the lights were bright and there was no music and all you heard was everyone else's conversation and kitchen noise, I was counting the minutes to get out of there. Like no matter how good the food was, which it was good, and no matter how good the drinks were, and they were good, there was like when they came back for, do you want dessert? No. Do you want another drink? No, we're going to go somewhere else. Like I had already transitioned out, and it may not, again, some of these things seem basic, but I don't think they're as immediately obvious as we might think, because this was an award-winning restaurant. This was a significant place, getting it either by design really wrong, in my opinion, or by design completely missing, or doing it a way that they had wanted to do it, but it wasn't contemplating enough how the guest was receiving it. It was more, hey, here's what I want to do, like it or leave it. And that could be cool. I would never go back
Uh,
because of the
Dave,
atmosphere.
yeah, I mean, maybe Kevin was working and Kevin never does those things,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. It
so
could
the
be that.
next day, someone actually turns the lights down, turns the music up, and just Kevin needs to be gone, so that's just
Yeah, that comes back to the point I was saying. See, trying to train people that are new in the industry, because, like, as a customer, well, as a hospitality customer, it's a different thing. You know why you're uncomfortable in that environment. We know it's the ambience. We know it's the light. It's the sound. It's, I'm sitting at a table that's the wrong height. We know that. But as a general sort of Joe Bloggs customer that's never worked in the industry, they don't know why they feel uncomfortable, and they can't quite figure it out. Apart from, like Dave says, you're just looking for the door and you're not coming back because you sort of felt uncomfortable and you don't know why, because Kevin was on. Kevin needs fired. So uh, that's a
Or
really
Kevin.
hard thing as as a bar owner, as a trainer, and all
Yeah.
the rest to train. Say you've got a big team, 20, 30 staff, not to touch the lights. You've got like 2 people on shift that are allowed to touch the lights, that are allowed to touch the music. I had a manager. I had a manager, and all he wanted to listen to was the music that he wanted to listen to. So when he was on shift, and and he would go, okay, okay, and he would put on whatever we had on for, like, serving Sunday roasts, a nice sort of party bar, but like a party vibe, Sunday papers, Bloody Marys, roasts, that kind of vibe going on. And you would come in, and he'd be playing like dirty dark AM drum and bass at like 1 p.m. on a Sunday, when you've got people where they're sort of, I'm in England at the minute, so like their English sort of afternoon Sunday papers, pints of ale, like Bloody Mary's roast, dirty drum and bass at like, stuff you'd hear at 4 in the morning. And you would only know he was doing it if you came in and you'd be like, man, what's going on? And you could see people cringing, like, this is so wrong. You know.
Yeah.
And then you would turn it over and you put on some like nice sort of chilled, like laid back sort of hip hop, easy, like, easy listening, what nice, like whatever it was. But he could not see or could not hear that was making everybody else uncomfortable in the room. It was so strange. And, we lost him eventually because we couldn't train him to play the right music. And,
You had to kill Kevin finally. Okay.
we had to kill Dad, had to be buried. He was out. He was out pretty quickly. He was untrainable in the ambience department. Massive fail. But if we were losing customers, we couldn't put him on that shift. We could only ever put him on, like, Friday night, Saturday night. And we couldn't put him on these, like, these lovely lazy Sunday shifts. And yeah, so important.
Yeah. Yeah, that gives you nightmares because if you have a team member who, I mean, that's where I think, like, I feel like the hospitality sense of DNA, we talk about it all the time, that who are you, like, you have to be giving, right? There's no ego here. I might like this music, but that's not why I made this bar. And I didn't make this bar for myself. I didn't make this drink for myself. I didn't make this dish for myself. I didn't make this chair for myself. I feel like the minute you keep yourself away from it and just step back a little and think about who this person is that you're catering to, and if you have this lazy Sunday brunch people coming, what do they want? And if you understand that, I think that's the key, right? If you find a team member or a staff team like that, that's your game, right? That's when you win.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of my go-to consulting phrases that I tell a lot of people, and that I probably said on my podcast way too much, is no one gives a shit what you like.
Mm,
Like, no one cares what you like. It doesn't matter, right? It's about what they want. It's about what fits your atmosphere, what fits your guests. Everything else is irrelevant. And what you like is probably the least relevant thing in the world as a bar owner. But to get back to that sound piece, what's interesting to me, Dave, about what you were talking about is the idea that you would have nothing on.
I know.
Right? Because
Yeah.
the thing that makes me more annoyed than anything is dead air. And that's what I call it, when there's just no sound. Because in my bars, we used to, like, the sound was normally ESPN. I'll be real honest, because I wanted you to put money in the jukebox. So I wasn't going to play music for you for
Yeah.
free. I want you to pay me for that.
you're dating yourself.
It was
The
a touch
jukebox.
tunes, okay? I mean, we still have them.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I like that, Chris.
Yeah.
One of the things that we coach on is like fundamentally there's 1% of people that can say something like people don't know what they want until I give it to them. And that sort of rarefied air is reserved for the likes of Steve Jobs. And then there's the rest of the mortal beings that really should, in my opinion, would say what Meenakshi said, which is the example I like to use, kind of like you guys, is I love cooking barbecue, so I opened a barbecue restaurant. I think is wrong. The right outlook is I love serving people, and the way I do that is through barbecue. So to everyone's point here, who's all, you're all very talented and successful. That's the idea, is to be others focused versus self focused. And there's a lot of people. Look, we work with hundreds of bar and restaurant owners, and the numbers that we work with that are in the business because they wanted to open up a place for very specific reasons that are all about them is amazing. Like, it's a really high number. Some people get away with it because what they happen to like does work. And there's a lot of people that don't get away with it because they're not really hospitalitarians in the truest form. They're really more selfish and looking to capitalize that. There's a little bit of narcissism that's happening in that space. And I think the people that really get it right are the ones that are outwardly focused, others focused, but understand that there has to be something in it for them in that outward focus. Like, there is a win. It's not just pure, it's not a charity, but we have to put others first in hospitality. And then if we do that extremely well, then we get to reap a certain benefit.
Well, the thing that we always say, Dave, is that like there's an old boss of mine, and he was like, we don't sell food, we don't sell drinks. What we actually sell is a good time. So, and it's our job to facilitate that good time. Make sure absolutely everybody's having a good time. So, and that comes down to all these tiny little details to make sure that when everybody's left the building, they've gone, I've had a really fucking good time in there. I'm going to go back, And the thing is, if you're working in hospitality and you're providing that good time, you will have a good time when you're working. That's, and that's just it. And then it's just fun to go to work, then, then it's just,
Yeah.
it's just easy. Then you're just being paid to have fun and to have a good time and make everybody else happy.
Well, and what's
Yeah, but
interesting about what you just said, Eva, there's a thread that if we really think about everything we've talked about, that's kind of through this. It comes down to attention to detail on all these pieces, right?
Mm,
Because
100%.
Cliff's going, if my light bulbs don't all match, I just buy all new light bulbs and I throw all the other ones out, right? And we're talking these fine tuning of music, this fine tuning of lighting. And I think for a lot of folks, especially when it comes to atmosphere, they're just not paying enough attention. They're not thinking through it enough to make it this wonderful, cohesive experience that makes sense.
Mm.
And to some, and I can let Dave run with this, but one of the concepts in his book is inception archetype, which is great, and I think plays into this piece a little bit, Dave, if you want to
Well, there's
go there.
thank you for that, Chris. There's two things. One is the dichotomy between the devil's in the details and don't sweat the small stuff. And he's like, well,
Mm.
which is it? Right? That's hard. That's hard to know. And I think that comes down to playing the role that you're supposed to play in your bar or restaurant. So if I'm in the weeds, as we say, I'm busy doing a job or tasks, and I'm no longer in that observation mode where I'm taking in the experience as if I was the guest, and I have the time to notice things. So putting yourself in a position to notice is one feature. And again, getting stuck in the devil's in the details and don't sweat the small stuff. The don't sweat the small stuff has to do with things that you could otherwise have someone else do, where you don't want to micromanage, but you do want to be dialed into details, and understanding the nuance or the difference between the two can really make the difference between how well any organization, not just a bar, any business performs. As for the inception archetype, Chris, that's about understanding who your ideal guest is. That's something else we don't really do in bars and restaurants too much, is look at the demographics and the psychographics of a community and say, who am I serving, or what problem do I solve for this particular community, and how do I solve it? And is there a space for that? And again, you can open up a bar where you say, look, people don't even know they want this until I give it to them, and then they're going to go nuts. And if you can do that, you should be hosting your own podcast. For the rest of the people, if you can look at a demographic area like Cliff probably did and said, hey, you know what? I've got this great space. I would imagine this, Cliff. You tell me where I'm wrong. I've got this great space. I'm looking around. I think craft beer, this is probably a 10 years ago or something for you. But I presume you said, look, I think there's craft beers on the run. People want a place where they can sit down, experiment with beers. That's hot right now. There's nothing like that within a 2-mile radius. And the people who live in this area are the exact kind of people want this exact kind of place. And I'm going to open one of these. And you probably have a certain demographic around your city that you look for that fits the profile of your ideal guest. That's what I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, that's what happened. So we talked about this, like in real estate, you have you're a restaurateur and you're looking for a space, or you have a space and you're looking for a use. The space could be for an office, could be for retail, could be a bank, could be whoever. So I was a real estate guy and I found a space, and then I'm looking for a use, and then I'm just going to skip the whole gyration. But I did come up. I shadowed a young man who had a growler shop, and I thought that would be cool. Take his growler shop, but actually, just create a beer bar out of it. And the spark was on the way home. I would stop at a food truck, and so he just put those two together. So it wasn't, to Chris's point, and actually against that point, it was a little bit of not what it was what I wanted. I thought that would be a cool idea. So as a real estate guy, I'm like, okay, let's do this. Let's figure it out. I think it's a cool idea. I would want this. So maybe other people would want it. And that's what happened. So to your point about demographics is once we had our first store, I examined all the demographics in a 1 to 3 to 5 mile radius around Woodstock, Georgia, and I extrapolated that to other areas. And I was looking for similar demographics. I wanted to recreate exactly the ground that we had in Woodstock with other areas. It wasn't indifferent like a McDonald's looking for sites, or a Burger King shadowing a McDonald's, or whatever. I mean, that's a whole, science and art of corporate real estate looking for sites. But yeah, it's this could never work at the end of a shopping center. It has to be a certain demographic, a certain cityscape, a certain space. But yeah, kind of digressing there.
That's good.
100%. Yeah, no, so it's 100% like it has to. This is where it starts. I mean, like we have made now 4 bars, and all our 4 bars are cocktail bars, but different locations. And all the locations, one is in a high street, one is in a corporate office, sort of an after office drinking space, one is a more residential area, and one is in a different country. And all these 4 places that we created, we were like, okay, who are the people coming and what's going to happen? How much are they going to spend looking for? What is the neighborhood like? What sort of a rental are they paying? What are they eating around? So you have to dig deep and you have to take that time. I feel like just thinking that, oh, my friends are asking for this. We've heard this a lot of times, or, a bunch of our friends think that we should do this and it's cool. And I feel that's one of the most, rookie mistakes a lot of newer bar owners, restaurateurs make, that, they sort of look at, okay, this is trending, or matcha is trending, we should open a matcha bar. But what does that mean? Like, who are you targeting and where are you, do you have the audience to pick up that? There's a cost to product, there's a cost to the talent, who's going to make it. So there's a lot of questions you should ask before you get into the concept. And that's a concept is everything. And the minute you have the concept, you'll get your ambience right, your lighting right, your music right, your what have you, everything will fall in place.
Yeah, at recon, I mean, and I'm sure you experience this. You don't go into an area without boots on the ground, without walking to every bar, without, like Dave likes to do, sitting at the bar and being a good customer. How much is that old fashioned? Are they pouring 1.5 ounces? Or are they pouring 2 ounces? What's their well cost? What's their top shelf cost? A pint of beer versus a 12-ounce pour. And all of a sudden you're like, well, wait a minute, you get it down to the per ounce. You start, and then you start counting people. I would go and I would count people in the bars, and I would kind of stay there long enough to see, okay, well, they've had 4 drinks. And I would try to extrapolate that. Okay, well, if they're doing this, I think they're doing this, how much am I going to be selling? Pretty soon you're going to have analysis paralysis, but you can't just go into a market blind, for sure.
Yeah. And it's always that. I think that's where you design your ambience. Yeah. Like that's where I think this is your groundwork, and then you build up from there. You could be a nightclub which is offering the bums and crotches, or which is, which is, or is just a easy cocktail bar doing brunches, whichever way you want to.
But you're right about the ambiance. I mean, that's the other part of the recon is, let's just say there's a place called the Battery Atlanta. and that's where the Atlanta Braves play. But you can walk around that, and there'll be a world-class pizza joint, there's a barbecue joint, there's a hamburger joint, lots of sports bars. There's a Puerto Rican bar that has a totally different feel than anything else there. It's unique and it's not corporate. And that place was packed the other night, just packed. And it's a smaller but more intimate place. If I was at the Battery, I would kind of lean there. But there's another bar, a New Orleans-based sports bar, that has 44 TVs in that bar. And forget about lighting. I mean, it'll give you a seizure walking in. But that place was packed. So, there's something for everybody, right? And who are you building your bar for? I think we're getting it, again, are you building it for yourself? Now, if you're building it for yourself, there could be a whole lot of people like yourself that might enjoy it, but that's not always the case, right? I mean, but there's something for everybody. So I think if you can find that little niche in a market and you think people are going to accept it, then yeah. But uh, we like going where the water's warm. We like going where there's a bar crawl, and so we fit in there in between the really dive bars and the nice restaurants. We like being a place where someone's going to go before and after dinner, and a comfortable place at that. So ambience has everything to do with it.
If you get in at the beginning somewhere, we call it the cluster effect. So you get in at the beginning as well too. We've got two or three, and then it's starting, and you cluster together. That's the best. We used to there was a bar group that I worked for, and we did a big piece on like creating the sort of avatar for your bar. Who was the avatar? Who were you after? To then work out where we would put the next venues, or which of the venues we would reproduce. Because if you went into areas where that avatar were, and you knew who your key client was, and that was busy, then we go and exactly the same thing. Go and find the demographic area that matched the brand. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's a strategic question. It depends on how
Mm.
big your pockets are. You could
Yeah,
be an
yeah.
individual, you could have a investor bag, you could be a chain, you could you could constantly want to keep expanding on what you're doing. At the end of it, yeah, it depends on what you're building on, and then I mean these are your building blocks of, putting it all together in perspective on who you're making it for, and I think that's where it starts from.
Mm.
So one of my pet peeves, and I'm just going to throw this out there and then get your guys' thoughts, is so we were talking a lot about you go into a bar, it needs to have a certain feeling, right? And all bars have a different feeling. But the thing that annoys me probably more than anything else, and I see this all the time in the Midwest, especially in these smaller kind of neighborhood dive bars in the middle of nowhere, is you walk in and there's no coherent atmosphere, right? Like you could tell somebody had an idea of what they were trying to make 20 years ago, then people just kept throwing crap on the walls, and now you walk in and you're just confused, right? It has an Irish name, and then it's all just basketball stuff inside, and you're like, "Okay, I don't quite see how this works." So, to me, atmosphere, as soon as you get away from what you're trying to be, gets really bad and confuses your guests, and then they don't know what to expect when they're walking into a bar.
Yeah, that's just a bad plan, isn't it? Like, that's when you're going in. I see a lot of folks, like I say, we work with hundreds of folks in all different sort of levels of success. And you'll see people who are running the neighborhood bar that was originally designed maybe for the little league team to come after the game, parents coming in, and then you'll see them put in something like the gambling machines will come in because someone said, "Hey, you can make a ton of money on the gambling machines," and that can be true, except that's going to attract a certain person that isn't necessarily connected to the little league team coming in on the weekend after the game. It's just a different demographic, and it creates a different vibe in the place. And you start to lose that vibe, and you start to connect sort of these different, disparate, desperate ideas in a bar. And I think you end up with some sort of hodgepodge, like you describe, and then you don't get a following. Like part of what Meenakshi does, I think, incredibly well, to the extent that I know Meenakshi, is you create a following, you create a tribe, a group of like-minded people. Cliff said this too, that say, "Hey, this is my bar." So I guarantee you, there's hundreds of people for Cliff and Meenakshi. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of people that identify their place as their place. That's my bar. And so that's where they go, and they're going to protect that space and they're going to support it. But if you just open up a place on a wing and a prayer because you want to own a bar, and then it doesn't go well and you don't understand why, you bring in the gambling machines, you bring in You bring in the low cut
Yeah.
shirts. Is that going to work? Is the gambling machines going to work? Let me try karaoke, which I love that stuff. Like I love karaoke. I love all these things, but it may not be right for your bar. Is it in keeping with what you're trying to provide where you understand your avatar and you can speak to them and they say, "Yeah, this
Yeah,
is
I
my
would say I
place."
would say 100% Dave, adding to the ambience, pillars that we're talking about, daily programming is one of them. You could be like, a very quiet, intimate small bar, and suddenly if you bring in a, loud DJ and suddenly start put up these lights and screens and, all your, like, just because you're trying to amp up the sale on a Friday or a Saturday and it's not been going too well, most of these the desperation shows. Most of the times in the programming, you can see that this you're just doing to attract someone that's already not coming. And suddenly you don't know where you made the mistake because the ones who were coming will stop coming to you because the minute they see some strange things happening at your bar. And we've seen this so many times within 6 months to a year. Suddenly the programming is changing, it's haywire, the music keeps shifting. The kind of people also keep changing because suddenly you're now showing sporting events. You also put some live band on. You also did a DJ. You were like, okay, no, karaoke works because Dave likes karaoke. So suddenly it's like it's a whole thing because and this happens to a lot of people because the first 1 year is it's a reckoning, right? It's the period in which you make it or break it. It's the time when you're establishing your brand, your name, your following, your identity. And I feel like you really have to dig your heels deep in and say, okay, it's going to be just 4 tables today, but I'm going to make sure that these 4 tables are exactly the tables that I want. These are the people who will bring me more people, you know. And you have to be ready to sort of lose it all for your concept. You can't just suddenly be like, hey, okay, this food is not working. I'm going to bring in this fancy chef and start doing pop-ups. I've seen that in really, really dark bars and very fancy chef coming and doing something. And like, I don't know what's going on. Like, I feel bad for the chef and for the bar, right? Because none of them are winning. So, it's kind of sad. And you also lose money while you're marketing or planning and programming like that. So, yeah, it smells of desperation from far.
And you can't lead with greed, so you can't lead with greed. So you can't be like, it's the World Cup. So, let's get screens up everywhere because we don't want to miss out on the World Cup, you know. So, yeah, because then it batters away your brand or batters away your whatever you were building beforehand. I've had so many arguments with owners because I would have run the operations and they were like, well, we have to show the World Cup. And I'm like, but we're a cultural event bar that does, arts, culture, music, brunches, cocktails. We don't do sport. We don't have a screen, but you want to get in like giant projectors and stuff for sport because you don't want to, because you just see that money not
Yeah.
coming to you. Yeah, it's how you
I
have to keep
think
your.
I think what Cliff said was smart. Cliff said, I think you have to do the hard work up front. Like Cliff said, hey man, I did all these. I look at the demographic. I know who lives here. I know what the concept should work. I'm going to test it. I'm going to prove it. And then I'm going to go find that exact same demographic and I'm going to just drop this concept right where it belongs
Yeah,
everywhere.
perfect.
You got to do that hard work up front to really understand that. And if you're someone who wants to open a bar, but you don't understand that, get some help with that on the front end. So you're not paying dearly for years to come on the back end. Cliff, I'm
Yeah.
Yeah.
sorry, I interrupted.
Well, regarding sports, I mean, I get that. We opened up 10 years ago and we were not going to do politics. We're not going to do it. We're just going to be a bar. You know, I think we had 2 TVs, but you can't ignore sports where I'm at right now. College football is huge and Atlanta Falcons, huge. We have customers that will say, we're going to go somewhere else. So it's just like when we first opened and we're craft beer and we're idealistic craft beer, but there's a couple people that wanted some domestic light beer. So we gave it to them. So you do have to pivot. You do have to listen to your customers. And, we have a TV outside now, so people will sit on the curb and watch the game. And there are other places to go and watch the game, and they were going there until we got the TV. So you do have to listen to your customer. If you can pivot, you can pivot. But if you want to stay tried and true to your brand, well, that's the sword you may die on. I mean, so we've pivoted. We had to open. We were a beer bar, but now we have cocktails, and actually we sell so much that we get some high end bourbons and whiskeys and tequila. We pivoted. We had to do that. So never say never, Chris. We don't have beer stuff all over the walls here. There's only probably one branded. There's a barrel right there that we got from Wicked Weed that they gave us a collaboration one time. But there is no other advertisement on the wall here. But there's a whole lot of stuff. The kids have put, little balloons and different lighting. And it's kind of the evolution. They're almost bedazzling the bar, right? It
Yeah.
started with jeans and a t-shirt, and now someone put on some boots and a necklace and a bracelet and a watch, and it's developed a character over the years. So never say never, but you got to listen to your customer,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and your
but
customer will.
you've done the right
Yeah.
thing, Cliff, because you pivoted. But I mean, you haven't just thrown your concept out and just from one week to the next, gone right now we're a sports bar, now we're this. You haven't
Yeah,
abandoned what you are, which is a local craft beer bar that serves great drinks with amazing lighting. You know, but if you. I mean, your bar sounds just like somewhere that I would want to go. But if you need to stick a TV in the corner, that's a different thing. But I mean,
right,
completely
right, right.
from
Yeah.
your
And your
concept.
and your audience will like sports. We are talking about your audience, your target audience likes art, music, sports. We all like it. It's not like we are hating on 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 screens or anything like that. It's about saying that being true again, true to the concept, sing off with knowing who your people are, who your initial tribe will be, who are the people who will draw this. Of course, years down the line, I've been to some amazing dives where there's stuff all over the walls and you have no idea what the hell is happening, but somehow it all works for them and it's fantastic. We've seen that as well. So it's all how the place has evolved, how it has still has the lovers in the community and the you know it's got this integrity of the identity very strong. So I feel like till the time you haven't made that, I don't think, yeah, like what Aoife is saying, like you can't be jumping from concept or people constantly. Yeah.
Now, I do think there is a way to kind of thread the needle a little bit because my bar, we had the gambling machines, we had the sports on TV, we had the karaoke on Friday nights, like kind of some of the stuff that we're like, hey, you can't just jump to this. We were doing all of it, to be real honest. But the thing was, it was always what that bar was,
Mhm,
right? We were true to
mhm,
ourselves, we were consistent. And
mhm.
so, yeah, you come in Friday night at 2 o'clock in the morning. Is it loud karaoke? And do I have like lights and stuff going on? Of course. And then you come in Saturday night. Is it trivia and is it really chill? And it's like a bunch of academics just sitting in a room with paper and pencil? Yeah. And is that
Yeah.
kind of jarring if you go one night to the next? Absolutely. But we had built that into our concept and we were always true to being kind of that neighborhood gathering place where, yeah, okay, maybe tonight's not your thing, but tomorrow night probably is. And we played into that. So I think it all comes down to just being authentic at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I have to tell you a funny
Absolutely.
story. There was a bar that I used to work in in Ireland before I moved to the England. It was amazing. It had like loads of everything's going on. It totally found my tribe. It was great. But on a Sunday afternoon, they used to put on the traditional Irish sessions, the trad sessions. And the trad musicians would come in, and it's not on a stage or anything. I don't know if you've been to trad sessions. It's just normally
Yeah.
the trad musicians are just sitting in a booth and they're playing. But uh, they wouldn't let you talk. So the musicians used to shush the customers. So every time the customers used to be like, like Sunday afternoon, having some Guinness, blah blah blah, and you're chatting away. It was the bar was a bar of discussion. It was a bit of a political kind of bar. Like you went there to talk and ideas. But the minute the traditional Irish music was on, you were being shushed as a customer. It was like, shh, you can't talk, shh. So you had to sit there and actually listen. So we never went on a Sunday afternoon because we knew we were going to be shushed.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's delicate, Chris, because I think as a guest, especially with money being tighter and tighter, people want to know what to expect. And if they're going to come, let's say I gather up a bunch of friends and I'm going to Aoife's bar and I'm just like, hey, this place does incredible traditional Irish music. And I go in there and they're playing death metal. I planned all week. I gathered up my friends. I planned all week to go to this place that does this predictable thing, and I get something else. And you may say, well, that's no big deal. If it's no big deal, it was just one night. Yeah, but it's likely never again that I'm just going to grab my friends and go, let's just go here because I know I can count on this. No, now I'm going to do an internet search. I'm going to check. What are they doing tonight? Hang on before we go there. We need to see what's going on. And then when I go start doing that search, you know what happens? other options come up. And now I have the opportunity to maybe pick something better, something different. So, and that's my point when it comes to being like predictable and creating a tribe. You know, Meenakshi has, if she has these wonderful cocktail bars that are, say, perfect for a date night, and I've got this date. Chris, you and I are going out on a date. It's going to be a hot night. We're going out Friday night, and there's this great cocktail bar I know, and it's going to be wonderful. And we go there, and it's something other than that. It's funny how you don't give that many chances. You only give that disappointment or that change like one or two opportunities, and then it's a different experience. Even if it's just, hey, let me research this. You know, I go to Cliff's place. We're not selling beer tonight. No, it's a no beer night. It's cocktails only tonight. You're like, well, hang on. What the hell happened? That's ridiculous, I know. But you guys get the point.
It's not actually. Our CO2 went out the other day, and I happened to be behind the bar, and a guy said, "Well, I don't want a beer in a can." And I try to tell him that, actually a beer in a can might have a more recent date than the keg. Matter of fact, a can of beer is sometimes more fresher than a keg. Anyway, he left. But some people have walked in our bar. Look, there's 12, 15 places around here, and I see them on the street, and I'll say, "Oh yeah, I'm Cliff, and I'm Truck and Tap," and they'll go, "Yeah, we don't go there," you know. So, and I'm not insulted, but they have found they are a tribe to some other bar, and that's totally fine. So it gets back down to why do they go wherever they go? Well, it could be they sit at the bar at a steakhouse. They sit at the bar at the taqueria. They sit at the bar at the gastropub. That's totally fine. You look at those three places, totally different ambiance. But they're probably getting a good drink. They're probably getting a good bartender. They have all those elements that we have, but it's a different. You're right. Rage Against the Machine could be on over here, and Steely Dan is on over there. That
Right.
could be the only thing.
Yeah.
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 So
Claire,
Ambiance has just a huge play in this.
if you need to get some hand pumps in for emergencies.
I know, right? You're right. You're right.
Dave, I want to go back to what you said about consistency because I think consistency is huge. And one of the things that was interesting in my situation, I did not want to do trivia on Saturday nights, right? I thought that was like a really dumb thing to do on Saturday, but they had been doing it for 10 years before I bought the bar on Saturday night. I tried to switch it from a Saturday to a Wednesday.
Problem.
Oh, hell broke loose. I killed my Saturday night. I killed my Wednesday night. I did it for like a month. And I'm like, this is the dumbest move I've ever made.
Uh-huh.
Threw it right back on Saturday night and I was good again.
Uh-huh.
So I was able to do a lot of different things, but God forbid I tried to change a time or a day when those things were going on.
Yeah. Yeah. So you had created micro tribes, is what you created.
Now, Chris, like you don't need to mend what's not broken. You already had a great, Saturday, and you had a great number of people coming. You already know it's working for you. Just because your neighbor said so or somebody else said so, or I've seen that with bar takeovers a lot of times these days. A lot of people are just randomly doing bar takeovers for no reason, and I'm like, but why are you doing it? Are your guests happy? Are your guests looking forward to these cocktails? Do they even know who these bartenders are? A lot of times it's just like a short and like although everybody's doing it, it's a trend right now. Everybody has to do it, to get these awards now, to get in these lists. So it's a whole different ball game. It has nothing to do with the guest itself. Like you should be thinking about your guests right now, and are they happy? Are they excited about these new cocktails coming to you every week?
Agree with that.
Absolutely. And on that note, we've been at this a while, so we should probably wrap it up a little bit. But quick lightning round around the room. And the question I want to ask you all this week is what is your favorite bar closing song? Because we've talked about music quite a bit. So I'll just go around in the order you guys are on my screen. So we'll start with Cliff.
Yeah, I would say this is a oyster bar in Florida, and they would always play Jimmy Buffett. Why don't we get drunk and screw? So I thought that was a pretty good one.
Good encouragement on a reason to get out of the bar. Meenakshi, what about you?
Song called I Love This Bar by Toby Keith always has been like our, the minute you switch it on, everybody knows this is the last order. You need to get the fuck out. So yeah, that works.
That's a really good one, too.
Yeah. How about you, Aoife?
Oh, it has to be Don't Stop Believing by Journey.
That's such a good bar
I
song.
mean, there's air grabbing, get everybody up. It depends on the bar, obviously. You're not going to do that at a posh
Yeah.
restaurant, but somewhere like Cliff's Place, I'm probably thinking that I've put a Don't Stop Believing at the end of the night would get the people coming back
Maybe
again.
on
Random
maybe
karaoke.
on Mother's Day.
Dave, what about you? What are your thoughts?
I think the easiest, most on the nose one is closing time.
Yeah.
But I also like, for some reason, and it feels like the exact wrong thing, which would be perfect for me, was that Chumbawamba song. Like,
I
it's a
get knocked
hype song, so you
down,
shouldn't be
better get up
closing on the hype
again.
song, but for some reason, I like the hype song at the end. So either closing time or Chumbawamba would be, I think, my bar closing song.
Mine was always closing time. And we would do it after karaoke on Friday nights because it would literally clear my bar out like 15 minutes quicker when I played that song because
Yeah,
everybody got the picture and got the
yeah,
hell out.
yeah, yeah, that's what's great about it.
Yeah,
It's time to get
Yeah, it
yeah.
just it tells them and they're like, "Oh shit, I gotta go."
yeah.
Also you make put your lights up. So in the minute the last orders come up, you put your
Yes.
lights up.
Yeah.
And the
Speaking of
blowers.
lighting,
Put the blowers on as
yeah.
well.
Share the air conditioning. Shut the air conditioning. Don't let people feel
Oh, you.
that they're welcome anymore. We haven't talked about temperature. Chris,
So
you missed that.
you see, we have
Yeah.
opposite
Temperature.
problems. Meenakshi, we have the opposite problems. So you turn the aircon off, we turn the blowers
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. So we are obviously in different continents here.
I also, because I was a little bit rougher at the end of the night, I'd have one waitress and she was great, but she was like 60, looked like everybody's grandma, little short lady.
Yeah.
And she would just walk around, get the fuck out, get the fuck out. And everyone's like, oh, okay, I'll leave. Grandma told me to get the fuck out.
Over.
That works. I recently went to a bar in Goa where they had like they're in a neighborhood where you can't make like noise in the last order. So there was this one person who was holding like this placard and being like, it's closing time, last order. She was just going on doing this, and I was like, what
Oh
the
my
hell?
gosh, that's
What is
crazy.
just she's like shush, and then after that they started giving soup to everybody. Like I've no what was going on. So I was like, they gave us soup to drink. So it was really cool. I was quite enjoying this whole ritual of closing for a really long time. So
That's kinda
I was
cool.
like, yeah,
We
there's a
used to
lot of
give we
time.
used to give
Yeah.
lollipops for
Yeah, I like
so
that.
that
I like
they
that. I was like, I
wouldn't
remember the
disturb the
soup.
neighbors. So we used to give lollipops, so people would walk out under a lollipop.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, with that, guys, we got to wrap it up for the month. So, for everyone listening, check the show notes. You can get all of our contacts down there. If you're like, hey, Meenakshi's cool and I really want to get in touch with her, check down there. You can grab them. And we will be back next month with another panel discussion. Next month, we're going to be talking about turnover and labor. Not exactly sure we're going to go with that yet, but stay tuned. It'll be awesome. And we will talk to all of you later on.
Thanks, gang.
Thank you.